this is going to be a little spicier topic, not intended, but I thought it was a pretty interesting day yesterday in terms of podcast releases. And, yesterday we had Joe Rogan having Ian Carroll on. I'm not really that familiar with him. Luke,
I've seen some of his stuff. That's a kind of groipery.
Yeah, he's definitely like an Israel bad guy, but
he's also got this like theory that the Schofields have Jewified the Bible. It's pretty
I've had
cringe.
him here on my show. He was on my show for about 2 hours. We had some really kind of interesting conversations when he was here, and we went to dinner afterwards. And I think he's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's interesting. I don't obviously agree with everything he says, but at least he I don't know. He's interesting. I'll say, yeah. I will agree.
Him that. He's
interesting
and
he's word to use here.
He's good at he's good at making content. I do think that he but I don't agree.
He's probably best
most
known
of what he's saying.
Okay, he's probably best known for his very public criticisms of Israel, at least right now. He's also, on the Joe Rogan show. Then you have Candace Owens going on Theo Vaughn's podcast and also criticizing Israel. And this is, pretty interesting time because this is something that basically is not allowed. It's like, here's a small
I'm kind of conflicted about Trump, with his stance on Gaza, right? To me, that's I
totally disagree with him on it. It's hard to reconcile it in many ways. It's hard to reconcile because I see so much hypocrisy in terms of when we say America first, for whatever reason, we have this magic carve out. And you cannot pretend that that's not because AIPAC spends $100 million in our election. And this gets back to what we were talking about, whether it's Big Pharma, whether it's Israel, everyone's for sale in DC. And so I have been very disappointed with Trump on his perspectives about Gaza. I have been disappointed, by the way. He's the last person I'm disappointed with, because I've been disappointed, as we saw all last year, with the conservatives, people that say they're Christians, who are condoning this on the basis of what? Like, you're saying, oh, well, they're Muslims, so who cares? And that gets into our programming, which I've spoken about in my podcast, of this 9/11 programming, where we just don't see Muslims as like human life. And to me,
I don't.
To speak about Gaza and
I think she's being kind of disingenuous, though, because I've not seen
I don't think she's a big Muslim. This is just an end around for her to criticize.
It's very disingenuous, because those of I myself support Israel in getting their hostages back and taking action against Hamas and telling the innocents to evacuate. I support that. Everything that Trump that announcement that he made yesterday, I agree with it. So those who do have positions like myself on this, I have not seen a single one say, it's okay if they die, they're Muslims. No, we're not saying that at all. So I think that's extremely disingenuous. We want the innocent people evacuated, but we support Israel's right in getting their hostages back and being bold in that endeavor.
It's really I know why you support Israel. And you have religious ties to supporting Israel. There's the religious stuff with Israel, and then there's the political stuff with Israel. And the two often get mixed together. And I think everyone understands hey, I want my hostages back. And I don't have any issue with Israel bombing Hamas into oblivion. I have no problem with that. I do think that Israel has too much influence in our government, and up until now, I think Candace is being disingenuous here.
She is.
She's saying Muslims are good, but she's really just using this as a cudgel to criticize Israel,
right?
But I don't think she really cares about the Palestinian children.
No, I don't think she does either.
I could be wrong, but the fact that you're having this conversation now on Theo Vaughn,
I think a lot of what she's done lately is just repeat a lot of the talking points that her husband believes in, because she does seem to have taken a turn ever since getting with him. So I think that's a lot to do with it. And
I don't really know much about him.
He's a Catholic, and a lot of these, look, I'm not saying this against all Catholics. I consider a lot of Catholics to be brothers and sisters in Christ, but there is a lot of people more on the Groiper side who identify as Catholic, and so I do, to my knowledge, her husband is that she converted to Catholicism because of him, and I think that a lot of what she's and he's also a friend of the Tates, allegedly, and that's one reason why she's been defending them as well. So I think that a lot of her opinions have been shifted and centered around her husband's belief systems. So yeah, I think this is all disingenuous. I do think that these platforms have a right to have people talk and to say their opinions on them, even though I disagree with their opinions. Hey, I think you shouldn't limit free speech. You shouldn't tell people they can't have free speech.
Well, I just think it was a pretty interesting moment to have both Ian Carroll, who has been very vocally anti-Israel, and their government, not anything about Jews, as far as I know. I'm not like, I don't watch, I see his content go viral all the time, and the content he makes that I see is always like, about Israel. Someone says I got the call. No, I think I've been very clear that I don't care about Israel and I don't care about Palestine. I care about America. If you're a Jewish American and you're in America, I care about you. If you're a Palestinian American and you're in America, I care about you. I don't care at all about a war that's being fought in a desert 5,000 miles away. But Luke, what do you make of kind of this main?
Don't you go to me? Are you trying to get me canceled?
Luke, what do you make?
Jeremy, Hambly, gosh darn
Luke,
it.
other than totally agreeing with me, what
my internet connection's cutting off here.
Yeah, I can't hear. So you're breaking up.
Oh no!
What do you just make of? I'm just trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep it at the 30,000 foot level here. What do you make of kind of this mainstream, like, because nobody's criticizing Israel a year ago. Like, I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong.
There always was a lot of criticism of Israel, but now it's becoming a little bit more mainstream than it did before. Throughout my career, there was always these kind of like really hateful, like overzealous Jews run the world and they do everything kind of people. But I think, again, the nuanced conversation should be, hey, why is it our interest? I think we should treat Israel like we treat Ukraine. I think both endeavors should be treated the same way.
Yes.
And I think that's the logical perspective here. And it's very hard to try to decipher any kind of legitimate conversations from the toxic conversations of just hating all Jewish people. And that's the big kind of nomenclature that we're all a part of here that we really need to distinguish, because a lot of people on the right like to lump all of that in. And I don't think it's fair. A lot of people are like, oh, you criticize us giving them money and military assistance. And I'm like, you're a part of these people. I'm like, hold on. You're kind of.
I'm not a no. To be clear, I am not. I think what Luke's saying is like, I think we're both like, you can be critical of things that Israel's government does without being like a noticer. Like,
right, exactly. You're allowed to, because I don't. Even though I support Israel on this, you don't have. That doesn't mean that every single thing that Israel's government does like that you can't criticize when they do things wrong. Yeah, they do things wrong sometimes, and yeah, there are some bad Jews. There are bad people of every background, right? So,
yeah. Well, I don't like that they were dancing after 9/11, but anyway,
right.
Anyway. It's interesting. What do you make of this, Gothix? Like, I generally don't like collectivism, which is why I don't like Jews bad,
right,
or Russia bad, or whatever, or Russians bad, I should say, not Russia. And it seems like there seems to be an undeniable spike in that. Like out on the public square now. Luke's right. There were always noticers, but now it's almost become mainstream. Like, where, this stuff is not, some of it's right, some of it's wrong. But what I'm saying is, a year ago, this was not on mainstream. This was not happening in the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, so my take is, first of all, I kind of agree with Candace in the sense that when you say America first, why is it that Israel seems to be automatically included in that? Like, why are we supporting their wars? Why are we sending them money? Why are we automatically taking their side in literally every situation? I've even seen like Christians justify that automatic support for Israel just because like they're reading scripture in a particular way and like, oh, we need to support Israel, as if we're not talking about like whatever corruption goes on with their government. I don't know. I'm kind of out of the loop with that. But also I think the bigger thing here is, okay, so if not Israel, if not Palestine, are we genuinely going to say that we're always going to take a middle ground? Because like, I don't like innocent people dying regardless of who they are or what their beliefs are. But if we look at like radical Islam, there's an agenda with radical Islam. It's politicized.
It's baked into it.
It's baked into it. So this is why conflicts are never going to end. So if you were to say, okay, for this argument, let's just take let's take the Gaza side, let's take the Palestinian side. And if a radical Islam is that prevalent over there, eventually they're going to come for America. Like that's, right. I think people don't understand about that particular worldview is there's never going to be peace in that context. So we should be able to criticize the worldview, and then maybe you can diagnose why we're even having this conflict to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the vibe right now. I have Jewish friends, and they've obviously never let me in on their plans to control the world. Right. But like, I don't happen to know any Palestinians. I guess I just don't. I live in the cornfield in Wisconsin, but like, I don't like. I'm sure that the Palestinians are great people too, and not all of them are Hamas. And I think that there are questions to ask about why Israel has so much control of our government, it seems like, and why you can't question certain things. But what I am happy to see is that at least people are finally able to question them. And I think that's overall a good thing. I just don't like when it gets into the, all Jews bad kind of stuff. Like, right. All Muslims are not bad, but their religion is. But like, it's terrible. Yeah. So like, you want to talk about that kind of stuff. That's a different conversation. But I think Doge does need to audit APEC. I think that would probably never happen. I know Luke's been calling for it for a lot of years. Something about hand wringing, and he said some pretty unsavory things about APEC.
Jeremy, you son of a gun.
Yeah, what's
hype here? Okay, I'm just getting out of debt.
He's finally out of debt, and tomorrow he's going to be found in his garage with the car running. Yeah,
Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the comments on this. Nate says this is a slippery slope in action. It happened to the left, it'll happen to the right. These are bad people. Caleb says there's a lot of Catholics that forgot Jesus is a Jew and instead cry that the Jews killed Jesus.
I agree with that. They act like, and I'm not saying all Catholics. I think here's the thing: is not all Catholics are groypers, but all groypers are Catholic. That's what I'm finding. So I don't think this has to. Yeah, they pretend to be, and a lot of them aren't. And a lot of what they say, even unrelated to the Israel stuff, just talking about just some. Even some of like the manosphere type stuff, they're very anti-Christian values. So they at least use that as a cover. I think they do because it's more palatable to say, well, I'm Catholic. But this whole like, well, the Jews killed Jesus. It's like they act like Jesus was some helpless person who just, oops, they got me. It's Jesus said himself that he could have called down the angels to kill every single one of them if he wanted. He chose to die for us. And for our sin, we wouldn't be going to heaven if it wasn't for that sacrifice. So to use that as an argument is absurd to me.
Most people who use Catholicism as a shield to criticize Jewish people couldn't whip out biblical quotes like that.
Exactly.
Like, I've just, that's my experience.
Yep.